All right, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today. We have a much more intimate group today than we did the first workshop. So I'd like to suggest that we keep this fairly informal. I'm going to present some slides. Some representatives from Schoolcraft College are going to represent or are going to present some slides. But during the presentation, if you have any questions at all, raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute. I'm Donna Petrus. I am a consultant with MCCA working on the Local Heroes project. In terms of the agenda for workshop number 2, we're going to do some introductions. I'm going to do a very brief overview of workshop number 1, and then we're going to get right into a lot of the detail related to the alternative route to interim teacher certification, which we refer to as ARC, which is a much better way to refer to it than to have to say all those words. So we're going to do an overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about the providers and the resources. And then I'm going to turn it over to Schoolcraft to talk specifically about their program. At the end, I'll review the workshop schedule, and then we'll have time for discussion. So as far as introductions, in the chat, if you could put your name and your institution and your role, and then list the number of transfer plans that you have in education programs at your institution, if you know. And then if you do know and you have more detail related to that, can you list the institutions that you participate with in those transfer plans? In future workshops, we're going to talk a little bit more detail about the transfer plan itself. So this information will be really helpful for us in terms of working on that part of the plan. So a quick overview of the Local Heroes Project. It was an allocation that was given to the MCCA as part of the state budget to build stronger educational and career pathways in 3 areas: teacher pathways, first responders, and allied health professionals. These workshops that we're conducting right now are focused specifically on the K-12 teacher programs. In the first workshop, we talked a little bit about the staffing challenges that Michigan faces. We reviewed the certification requirements as posted by MDE. And then we also looked at an overview of teacher program options. We specifically looked at a traditional pathway, which you would think of somebody completing their undergraduate degree in teacher education, going through the process of the student teaching, then doing their MTTCs, and then actually going into a position. But then we also talked about the alternative pathway, which is a little bit different. And again, we're going to talk in detail about that today. We included this in the first workshop, and I'm providing it to you just as an overview, perhaps if you didn't attend. But just to give you an orientation to this chart, the blue boxes talk about whether or not the student already has a degree, whether that be an associate's or a bachelor's degree. The orange or the peach there at the bottom talks about that traditional pathway, and then the green boxes talk about the ARC program. So let me go into a little bit about the alternative route to interim teacher certification. This information came from the MDE website as well, and I've included that link down here. I should also mention that we will share the slides to the event on the MCCA website that you registered at. So if you go back to that, you'll be able to access the slides at the end. And we're also recording the session. So it takes maybe a day or 2 to get that recording up on the events page. So to go into a little bit of detail, the ARC is really a non-traditional program designed for individuals that already have a bachelor's degree, but in an area other than education, and are seeking to complete an expedited preparation program while they're employed so that they can become a teacher. And they do this under something called an interim teaching certificate, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Ideally, this route is a collaborative between the person who is looking to be a teacher, the preparation provider, and in this case, we're really going to be focusing on the Schoolcraft program, and then the K-12 district where they're employed. All 3 should really be working together to support that candidate in terms of learning to teach, experiences in the classroom, and ensuring their growth and development to become a teacher. So a little bit about the ITC, or the Interim Teaching Certificate. Candidates enrolled have the certificate that enables them to actually go through and teach in the classroom. A little bit different than the traditional pathway is the ARC candidate must complete the Michigan tests for teacher certification, or the MTTC, prior to going into the classroom and prior to getting the ITC. Depending on the area that they want to teach, whether it's, K through 3, K through 6, high school, etc., that will dictate which MTTCs they have to pass. Upon successful completion of the coursework and/or field-based experiences, the alternative route provider may require before recommending candidates for the ITC. Schoolcraft offers courses related to that. Some are prerequisites, but then there are also courses that are provided to the candidate while they are in the classroom under the ITC. So it's important to note that it entitles the candidate to teach full-time in a Michigan school. So they are actually earning a wage as a teacher. But it's only, the ITC is only good for 5 years and can only be issued once. So that means if for some reason that candidate, life happens, they have to stop out or drop out and then go back, just know that it's only good for 5 years. To maintain the ITC, an individual must continue to be enrolled in the ARC program. So to progress from the ITC to a standard teaching certificate, there are some requirements the student must complete. They have to go through the entire ARC program and successfully complete all the key assessments, have taught successfully for 3 years within the validity of their endorsement areas, meaning those areas that they achieved through the MTTC, make application for certification within the Michigan Online Educator Certification System, and that link is provided there. And they also need to be recommended by the ARC provider. I would say if an ARC provider like Schoolcraft is supporting a student all the way through this process, I would assume that they would recommend that student to then actually go on and get their certificate. Let me pause for a second. Are there any questions about those required steps in terms of ARC? The ARC program in general, the MTTC, the ITC, any of those? Okay. I also wanted to provide you information that there are several ARC providers within the state of Michigan, and they are approved through MDE. And I've listed them here. I won't read them. Some are other institutions of higher education. Some are also private providers. But I wanted to emphasize, again, this program that we're working on is really in collaboration with the Schoolcraft College program. There are also a number of resources and initiatives related to teacher education in the state of Michigan, and I've listed them here. The Michigan Future Educator Fellowships offer $10,000 scholarships to up to 2,500 future educators every year. And again, the links are provided if you'd like more information. Grow Your Own creates support staff to teacher programs where teacher candidates work while completing preparation programs. School districts specifically need to apply for these. So typically this might be a paraprofessional working within a school district who then wants to become a teacher. And then that's where the school district would apply. The Michigan Future Educator Program offers stipends of $9,600 to support student teachers. Talent Together helps school employees earn certification through partnerships within the intermediate school district and educator preparation institutions. The Rural Educator Credentialing Hub is to assist rural educators in becoming certified. If you remember from workshop number 1, we talked about areas where we saw greater deficits. Rural areas were one of those. And then the Golden Apple Scholars Program supports students who commit to becoming teachers. There are also several mentoring options as well as student loan repayment programs available through these resources as well. So any questions before I go on? All right. Well, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Jody Beckley. She's the Associate Dean of Occupational Programs at Schoolcraft, and Ryan Roenkamp, the ARC Program Coordinator at Schoolcraft. And I will be advancing their slides for them. Jody, I think you were going to start. Jody, you're muted.
I was trying to be good and quiet and not make noise, and then I missed it. So good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Donna, for that. So as Donna mentioned, this was a slide that we went over in detail in the first session, so I won't go into it in as much detail today. Ryan and I are going to do a little bit deeper dive into the program. But basically, a student is admitted, they're enrolled, they take courses, they have to pass their MTTCs, and then they obtain the ITC, and then there are other courses. So Ryan's going to talk more in depth about that. But then finally, after they get through the program, they receive their standard teaching certificate and they go forth into the world. So it's a wonderful opportunity, and we hope that you're going to learn more about it today, and we'd like to answer questions at the end as well. Donna, you can go ahead and forward that. So this is just a snapshot from the Schoolcraft website, just to give you an idea of what you would find if you go there. We do have a broad education program. We do transfer, the very traditional transfer program. So students will come and get an associate's in education and then transfer to a four-year institution and go through the traditional route to become a teacher. The rest of the links that you see here are focused on the ARC program. So we have a certification for PK3, and then you'll see secondary. Secondary is quite large. Folks can get certified in particular areas. And so we'll go into that in another presentation, but secondary can also be K-12, music and art, and those types of backgrounds. We have 3-6 certification, and then you'll see a pre-K 6. I do want to note that on the website currently, there is a posting that says the pre-K 6 program is on hold. That's pending inactivation. We have found that we didn't have enough students who really wanted to be certified pre-K 6. So going forward, it will be pre-K 3 or 3-6. It doesn't stop someone from doing both. They can certainly do both, but we won't have a route just for pre-K 6 as you see here. And then there are links to the applications, and those links currently are for the academic year 24-25. And once we get past this, we'll post updated applications for academic year 25-26. Next slide.
Okay, to be considered for admission into the ARC program, our candidates must meet a specific criteria, and that includes holding at least a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. It does not matter what their bachelor's degree is in, it can be in any content area. And they must maintain a minimum of a GPA of a 3.0 from their most recent degree. If a candidate's GPA is below a 3.0, our certification officer will review their transcript, and the candidate will be placed on probation until the GPA for that semester's cohort is determined. And if the cohort GPA is above a 3.0, they can be admitted. If it isn't, then they'll be rolled over into the next semester. When our teacher candidates apply to the ARC program, they must apply both to Schoolcraft College and the ARC program. They are required to submit their resume, official transcripts from their most recent degree, MTTC content exam results if they've already taken it. If not, then they need to submit a plan for when the exam will be taken, and successfully pass a criminal background check that is conducted by Schoolcraft College. Candidates are also required to take and pass the MTTC exam in their endorsement area within 1 year of being admitted into the program. Probationary approval may be granted for 1 academic year without passing the MTTC. However, the interim teaching certificate cannot be issued until their MTTC exam is passed. Go ahead, Donna. So this chart is a program overview. And we give this to all of our teacher candidates. It just kind of provides an outline of what courses they need to take in their phase 1 of the program. So once they're admitted and upon selecting an offered program, students are required to complete the pre-certification courses listed on this chart within a maximum of 2 semesters. If they choose to do it in 1 semester, that's okay too, but they can't take longer than 2 semesters to complete all of their courses, their pre-certification courses. The final course in the pre-certification sequence is our practicum course, where candidates must complete 60 hours in a classroom under the supervision of a cooperating teacher. Additionally, the teacher candidates must pass the MTTC exam in their endorsement area within 1 year of admission to the program. And after completing all pre-certification coursework and obtaining their passing MTTC score, we are able to recommend the candidate for their interim teaching certificate through the Michigan Department of Education. And then with this certification, candidates can apply and interview for teaching positions, and then they transition to phase 2 of the program. Go ahead, Donna.
Jody, I have a question. So how does the student obtain that employment? Are you going to talk about that in a little bit, or are they responsible for contacting school districts? Do you support them in terms of finding school districts that they might be interested in?
We do. I'll let Ryan give more information on that.
Yeah, so most of our teacher candidates will go out and apply for jobs in the area that they live in. Some of them already have connections to schools. And so they are, those are the students that have the Grow Your Own, they're parapros or working in a school, and they kind of just transition into a classroom. For those who need extra support, we do have job fairs that we are able to share with them. But also we have some of our local districts will send us postings and we're able to share that. That's not super consistent right now, but we are working with our marketing department to get something in place that we are able to consistently provide job openings to our candidates. Oh, can you go back just one slide, Donna? So this is phase 2 of our program. Once a teacher candidate secures a full-time teaching position, they enter phase 2 of the ARC program. During this phase, candidates are assigned an instructional coach from Schoolcraft College through the ARC program and are asked to select a peer mentor from the school in which they are teaching. Both the instructional coach and the peer mentor provide ongoing support, guidance, and feedback through the candidate's 3 years of teaching under the interim teaching certificate. So they work with the same 2 people, ideally, for all 3 years of their teaching. The instructional coach is very important in the candidate's progression. They conduct 3 formal classroom observations over the course of each of the school years. And each observation cycle follows a structured process, which begins with a pre-conference to discuss the lesson plan, followed by the observation itself, and then concluding with the post-conference to offer constructive feedback and to provide further guidance and professional growth. This process is designed to ensure that teacher candidates receive consistent targeted support as they refine their teaching practice. And then in addition to the support provided by the instructional coach and peer mentor, the teacher candidates are required to complete 1 to 2 post-certification courses, which is what you see on this chart. And those are offered during the winter or spring of each year in which they're teaching. These courses are designed to further enhance their teaching skills and contribute to their professional development. And then in the spring of their 3rd year, our teacher candidates will complete their final capstone course, marking the end of their requirements. And then upon successful completion of all program requirements, our certification officer will verify the candidate's eligibility for the standard teaching certificate. And once the eligibility is confirmed, our certification officer will recommend the candidate for certification through the Michigan Online Educators Certification System, which is often referred to as MOEX. This process just ensures that our candidates who have completed the program met the rigorous standards set forth by MDE and are fully prepared to continue their teaching careers past beyond our program.
So we wanted to say just a few words about tuition and fees. So at Schoolcraft College, we have two rates. So a resident pays $139 per credit hour and a non-resident pays $200 per hour. So what this is referring to is back in, I think, 64, when Schoolcraft first became a community college, it was because the school districts that you see there at the bottom of this page, Clarenceville, Garden City, Livonia, Northville, Plymouth Canton, and parts of Novi came together to form the community college. And so as part of that beginning government piece, it was decided that students from those districts would always pay a little bit less. So a resident fee, as you see there, is less than a non-resident. So if you're not in one of those school districts, you are considered a non-resident. Then there's some other fees. There's a registration fee of $44 per semester. There are other fees related to instructional equipment, infrastructure, learning management fees, and these come to $41 per credit hour. And then on the right side, you see specific to the ARC. So the ARC program fee is $2,100 per year. That pays for a number of things. One is the instructional coaching. The other is the program sponsorship. And by sponsorship, we're referring to all of the things that are in place. We have a lot of support systems that help us to make sure the teacher is successful as they go forth in terms of observations, collecting data, and those types of things. So when you add it up there, you can see the course tuition and fees of $3,359 and the ARC program fee of $6,300. So estimated for a resident would be $9,659. Estimated for a non-resident would be $11,000. And we say estimated because a student might have some courses that we can transfer in under a prior learning credit agreement. And then that would reduce those prices. So that's a ballpark figure just in general, so folks have a pretty good idea of what to expect. And I think those are all of our slides, Donna.
Okay, thank you. I'll pause here for a minute to see if anybody has questions. Well, I have a couple, if I may. How many interested students do you get inquiring about the program each year or maybe each semester?
I would say, just looking at our numbers, inquiries are between 35 and 50, depending on the semester. How many of those go on? There's probably 20% that do not go on, but they are still in that inquiry stage. So we try to continue to reach out to them. Sometimes life gets in the way and they're just not as ready as they thought they were. But we have a pretty good healthy enrollment every semester. We've been growing every year, year over year. We have an internal goal of 20% growth. And for the past 3 years, we've met that growth goal year over year. So we find that the program is doing well. But in terms of just those at the inquiry stage, there are probably 20% that don't move forward.
Do you have any sense of a cap on enrollment each year, or are you still able to kind of, if somebody is interested, it's not really a selective admission program at this point?
We don't have a cap. No.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was related to the degree. Of the inquiries that you have coming in, how many of them have no degree, an associate's degree, or already have completed that bachelor's degree? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I would say 99% have a bachelor's degree because we're very clear about that before you even apply, that's a requirement. Unless Ryan, of some other data, I feel like everybody that applies knows that that's a requirement.
Yeah, I would say, our certification officer gets most of the calls, but I've had one person and maybe 25 to 30 phone calls that did not have an associate's. I think it's very, very minimum. Most people have at least a bachelor's degree, if not a master's.
Okay. So for the people on the call, I think it's important to mention that we are looking at this program as a support for anyone in that, wherever they are in that educational progress in terms of becoming a teacher. So if someone is interested at your institution in becoming a teacher and perhaps using the ARC pathway as an option, we can work to develop those plans that support the student for associate's degree completion, as well as we're looking at developing relationships with four-year institutions where a student could complete up to 90 credits at the community college, and then complete that last year with the baccalaureate granting institution. So ideally, it would help that student get through quicker, hopefully less in terms of their costs. And it's important to note that the bachelor's degree can be in any discipline. Is that correct? So it could be a general studies, it could be interdisciplinary studies. It doesn't necessarily have to focus on an educational pathway, or if they're interested in science, it doesn't have to be in a science area. But I know we've talked before in terms of planning these sessions, and the student that still needs to complete some coursework can look at focusing on either areas where they might need support in terms of passing some of the MTTCs. Can you talk about that a little bit too?
Are you asking if we help prepare students for MTTC?
No, in terms of guidance, that the student would be able to, for instance, if they feel like they're wanting to complete an MTTC in an English area, but they don't feel strong in English, if they need to complete courses in a general studies or an interdisciplinary studies bachelor's degree, they could take some of those related courses at that level to then help support them to pass the MTTC.
They could do that. It would be an additional expense for them. It wouldn't be incorporated here in these costs that you see. So
I'm talking about separate when they're completing the bachelor's degree, when they're doing the coursework before they get to ARC.
yes,
It's just that they can then do some of that general coursework to help them with the MTTC areas.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for Jody or Ryan? Okay. So we've got another few workshops coming up on April 28th. We'll be talking specifically about the course prerequisites offered at Schoolcraft, as well as the course outcomes. Some of those prerequisites can also be offered at your institution, so we're going to explore that a little bit as well. The workshop on May 19th, the fourth one, will be looking at those bachelor's degree options that I referenced. The fifth workshop, which will probably be packed with information and lots of questions, I would hope, is the information about the MTTC, and that's on June 23rd. On July 22nd, we are planning for a summer retreat to be held at Schoolcraft College on this topic, so I'm hoping that you will save the date for that. And then our final workshop will wrap up on July 28th related to communication and recruitment. So I've included links to some resources. We do have a Local Heroes ARC kind of page for those that are interested. You can subscribe to that, and you will be then, receive information related to the project itself. So I would encourage you to go out there and subscribe. And then make sure you register for the April 28th workshop, and then let me know if you have any questions or want to talk about next steps. Okay, well, thank you, Jody and Ryan, for the great presentation and information, and I look forward to seeing everyone in about another month. In the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.